Hey, 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 how are you today, Melissa?
Good. How are you, Nate?
I am good. I am good. We both survived the hurricane that came through, thank God. Saw some of the video that some of the other places had, and we were fortunate to get through that. So,
For sure.
um,
The West Coast just was hammered. We're kind of near Crystal River, and gosh, the pictures I've seen on social today is just truly devastating, some of those areas.
definitely, definitely. Let's talk about what is going on in mortgage and in real estate. Just before we went live, Melissa and I were talking about some strategies that most people may not have thought about, but when it comes to refinancing, finding ways that they can eliminate debt and maybe not be so clingy to those unrealistic rates that are never going to be coming back. So I think that's where we should kick it off. And then anybody that wants to join us live and ask any questions, we're going to be here to answer those questions for you. You've got Melissa and Nate here from Coast to Coast Mortgage, Shore Point Mortgage, and we're happy to answer any questions you have on mortgage or real estate throughout Florida, throughout the Southeast. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say right now, probably around 30% of my mortgage applications are cash out refinances. Clients who have been married to those 2 and 3% rates, they've acquired some additional debt over the past few years and they feel like they're drowning. So, we're going over some scenarios, evaluating their options, and they're deciding, hey, let's refinance, let's get rid of some of this debt. And I think 2025 going into the market, we're going to have some competition out there because now you have clients who are no longer married to that 2 and 3% interest rate. In supply and demand, it's going to get a lot more competitive. So
it definitely is going to get more competitive. I think a lot of people I don't want to say short-sighted. That's not the right word. A lot of people are looking at their current rate of interest and they're saying, well, I've got this rate and this is my payment. I don't want my payment to jump up. But all the while, they are seeing that they are getting more and more revolving debt. And that revolving debt has minimum payments that some people are drowning in. I've had a lot of conversations with clients that we closed on homes 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and then just over the past couple of years, because of the inflation, because of how much more expensive things are, they're using their charge cards a lot more. And some of them have hundreds of dollars a month on a single credit card.
payment, yeah.
When you do, let's say you have 2 or 3 cards where you've got these ginormous payments, it's scary. And if you look at your minimum payments on a credit card, it's almost like a very high interest mortgage. Okay, because you've got a balance on this card that's $10,000, $15,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then you've got interest rates tied to that are in the teens, 20s, possibly 30s. I've seen. It's scary. And if you make your minimum payment on those credit cards, you're not going to pay that thing off for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And most credit card statements, I think now have some compliance that they have to show how long it's going to take you to pay that off if you are continuing to make the minimum payments. So there are people that are in these 20, 25, even 30-year agreements on credit cards at ridiculously high interest. So if you're already in that boat, why not take the credit card debt that you have and any other debts that you have, consolidate that into your mortgage, and then that blended rate is certainly going to be a lot less than you're paying on those credit cards. One of my clients, we looked at, her rate was in the mid 4s, which is a fantastic rate, but she was one of these people that I'm talking about that have just a tremendous amount of credit card debt. And when we took out the equity that she had in her property and we looked at eliminating all of those credit card payments and taking a slightly higher rate, she ended up being in the low 6s when we ran it all out. She's saving on a monthly basis almost $2,500 just in monthly payments. So she's saving on her mortgage. Her mortgage payment did go up, undoubtedly, but she no longer has those credit card debts. And I said to her, the best thing for you to do is to take those credit cards and don't close the accounts, but get rid of the cards so you don't have the temptation to spend them again.
Yeah.
And then the money that you're saving, you can do one of two things with. My suggestion is that you put it back into your mortgage and you pay the principal down. that's really the best thing for you to do. The other thing that you can do is to set it aside somewhere so that if you need to do home improvements or something like that, you've got the money set aside to do that. And you don't have to refinance and borrow more money. You're just going to use the you have on. So
Yeah, so I actually was watching a episode on Mortgage Coach the other day with Keith Collins, and he was presenting a scenario exactly like you just said. If they are refinancing their mortgage and say they're saving $350 a month, but yet they're spending the same and applying that $350 a month to their principal, they're actually accelerating the mortgage. And in that particular scenario, they were paying it off, 11 years sooner and saving $100,000 in interest. So still spending the exact same, but just applying it to the principal to pay it off faster.
Right, exactly.
So it really blows people's minds, and yes, you were saying, I had a client, same thing the other day. They had, several trade lines that they were paying high interest and the 20% on their credit cards, paying every dime of their debt off, utilizing their equity from their home. They were still saving $700 a month by refinancing into a slightly higher rate, eliminating all of that debt because now they don't have those higher minimum monthly payments. Everything is zero, slate is clean, and they're now able to put some money back into their savings or just feel and live a little bit more comfortably.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with one of our clients yesterday, and we have this tool that's available to us that I would like to share. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So here's a real example that I had with one of my clients that I was talking to yesterday. We put her into a loan about 18 months ago. 18 months ago, she was at a $400,000 loan at 6.625%. She's paid that down quite a bit because we put her onto a plan to have that paid down sooner. So here's where she is now. She owes about $350, and the rate that I was looking at with her based on all of her criteria and so forth, not APR, but just interest, was 5.99%. So that was going to take her payment down, down to about $465. Or sorry, it was going to take it down by $465. And she thought that was great, but she said, what happens if rates go even lower? Like, should we wait? I said, well, let's say hypothetically 12 months from now, rates are going to be at 5.25%. Hypothetically, we don't know where rates are going to be. Nobody has a crystal ball. There's nobody sitting in an office somewhere that dictates mortgage rates. They're a traded commodity on the market. So they change throughout the day, every day. But let's say we can get you to 5.25 in 12 months. You're going to only save $629 at that point. And then the cost of waiting is going to be $5,581. So almost $5,600 is going to be the cost of delaying. And then in order to recoup that cost of waiting after that 12-month period has come, she's got almost another 3 years that she's got to wait. So I said, you can do that, absolutely. But this is what you're giving up. If you're not doing the refi now, which is totally up to you, you're going to be costing yourself $5,600, and it's going to cost you 3+ the years that you waited to do that. And I don't suggest that. So she said, you know what? You're right. That's why I wanted to talk with you about it. This isn't my area of expertise. You're my mortgage advisor. So we're going to move forward with that. So we got that plan going for her yesterday. And I know that that's huge for her. She doesn't want to refi necessarily, but she's seeing that and being able to do that, she's going to save $465 a month.
And in addition to that, the recoupment period is important too.
Mm-hmm.
We really have to evaluate that. We want to make sure that that makes sense, because you don't want to not be able to recoup the cost when we're refinancing the mortgage, and a lot of people don't understand in a refinance, there still are some closing costs. We have to receive the escrow account. So we want to make sure not only can we maximize the savings, but we also want to be able to recoup those closing costs in a certain time frame.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing that you have to look at. So you have examples where there are folks that have these lower rates, but they've also got a tremendous amount of appreciation that they've gained over the last couple of years. And they're in a perfect position to be able to tap into some of that to reduce their monthly debt and help them breathe a little bit more. I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing, Melissa, but a lot of the folks that I'm talking with that I did put into a loan a couple of years ago are finding that they are in that situation where the mortgage payment isn't what's so scary to them because they have lower rates, but all of these other debts are really starting to become
Yeah.
stressful. So they have the equity in their house to knock that out. And that's the reason why people buy real estate, right? That's the story that we're always sharing. You're investing in your future. When you're renting, let's say your rent payment's $2,000 a month. That means every single year you're taking $24,000 and it just disappears. But when you have a mortgage and you have a $2,000 mortgage payment, some of that's going to interest, some of that's going to pay down the principal, but then every month along the way, you're also getting some appreciation. So the amount that you owe on the property is decreasing. The amount of equity you're getting in that property every month is increasing. And over the course of 12 months, 24 months, now you have this asset that can bail you out, quote unquote, when you're in this situation. That's why it's there. You should use it.
Right. And also a lot of things that clients, I tend to tell them is certain loan programs, we're limited to 80% on the cash out refi too. So you still have some equity in the home. Say you eliminate the debt in 2 years, something in life changes, you relocate, you have to leave for a job. You are still going to walk away with equity from that home because we're not utilizing all of it in the refinance. We are limited to that 80%.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
It is a good nest egg. Values are appreciating. It is there for a safety net. I have a client right now that actually did a cash out. She is paying off all of her debt and she's utilizing some of the remaining cash to purchase an investment property. So, again, eliminating debt, but investing in her financial future as well, and potentially creating an income stream there for her. So, a lot of people can do with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. So if anybody's watching, you have any questions, you want to ask us any specific questions about the refi opportunities or any mortgage questions or any real estate related questions, let us know. We are here to answer those for you live for about the next 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, if it's not something we touched on today and something that you guys have been wondering about, thinking about, please feel free to ask us. We're here to help. And our biggest thing is we want to educate. We want everybody to feel super comfortable in what they're doing in their real estate and financial decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So other than the refinances that you've been doing, I've also had a lot of buyers that I've had pre-approvals with now for months that are starting to get a little bit more serious about home shopping. Some of them had a little bit of hesitancy going into summer, but now that we're coming into fall, it's officially fall, right? We're in September 27th. So they're starting to realize that, the water isn't so cold or the water isn't so warm, whatever side of the boat you're on. And they're starting to come back again. So one of the things that we can expect to happen now that more buyers are coming into the market is that not only are we going to see more activity on some of the listings that are out there, but we might get into a situation where now there's going to be multiple offers made on certain properties. And before, where there may have only been one or two offers and you stood a pretty good chance of getting that property, now every other offer that's on the table, your chances of getting that offer one get diminished incrementally. So
and now you got to think, if you're in a multiple offer situation, sellers are going to be a lot less likely to offer concessions because they feel like they don't have to. So right now, we're in a market where sellers are willing to help with closing costs and buying down the rate even more, even with the improvement. But as we enter, this era of the real estate where the market is now starting to change, they're not going to be as likely to offer those concessions. And people, like you said, Nate, are just going to be starting to offer over asking price, kind of like when we were in that COVID era, we talked about it last week. I mean, there were several houses when I was looking, we overbid by a lot and we didn't get those houses, thank goodness, but we may be in that exact same situation in the very near future.
Yeah, Exactly. I think that there's a lot of buyers that are still waiting for that perfect storm, quote unquote, no pun intended with the hurricane that we just had, for when they are going to get back in. And the reality is, they and every other buyer with a similar mindset is going to find that when they do get back in the game, it's going to be too late potentially at that point. There's a tool that we have access to that shows what the cost of waiting actually is. And there's never an example when I've run that calculator that shows that there's an advantage to waiting, because every month, as we just shared, the appreciation on that property is going up. So you might find a really beautiful house right now that's at the perfect price range for you. Let's say your perfect price range is $350,000. Like, that's your ideal home. But you're saying, I don't want to take advantage of that right now because rates are X or my payment's going to be Y. So I want to wait 6 more months, or I want to wait 9 months, and I want to wait and see what happens on rates. That same house now that you're in love with, that's your ideal property, that's in your price range at 350, could be 355, 360, 365 9 months from now. So any potential rate improvement that you think is going to help you get a better payment on that property is going to be offset almost entirely, if not completely, because of the cost of that house. $15,000 may not sound like a lot, but when you look at what $15,000 does to a payment and you look at the rate change, it's almost completely a loss.
Right. And now with the rates lowering, you're potentially increasing your buying power now, to whereas if you wait 6 months, although rates may or could not be the same, now the price has gone up. And so you're actually limiting your buying power by waiting. That's the potential cost of waiting.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a catch-22,
Exactly.
But I know I would rather, what do they say? Buy the house, marry the house, date the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I appreciate the sentiment of that. I think that so many people use that now and it kind of lost its meaning, but I completely agree with what you're saying. Don't be so obsessed necessarily with what the rate is now and what your payment is going to be now. If it's something that's comfortable for you, don't look for the ideal payment. So hear me, I'm not saying I want you to get into a home where you're struggling monthly to make the payments. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you can get into the property now and it's not something that's, giving you, loss of oxygen, quote unquote, don't wait for that perfect opportunity. They say that when you're going to have kids, like there's never a perfect time to have kids, right? Because there's so many people that wait, and then they have kids and they're like, you know what? Now I'm in my 30s, now I'm in my 40s, and I shouldn't have waited this long. And then there's some people that do like to wait that long. So if you're one of those people that likes to wait longer to buy a house, then do so. But if you are waiting simply because you think there's going to be some huge benefit around the corner, I have found time and time again that is just not the case.
Yes, there's always a cost of waiting. So like you said, when we're doing our discovery calls, our consultation calls, and we're going over a price point with the interest rate, the current interest rate, and a payment, and clients are comfortable with that, and they want to take a gamble and say, well, let's just wait, maybe another couple months after the election or whatnot and see what rates do. Well, now you have multiple sellers coming in, and now it's not as comfortable as a payment because now the price is a little bit higher.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. I 100% agree with that. If the numbers work and it's something you're comfortable with, why wait?
Exactly. Yeah. And again, Melissa and I are not telling somebody to overextend themselves. We're telling you that if you can make it happen and it's in your comfort zone, that there's not a ginormous advantage in waiting. Everybody seems to think that waiting is going to somehow miraculously prevent them from overspending, overpaying. And the reality is, the longer you wait, the more you might end up paying for that property, and you're not going to save nearly as much as you're expecting to save. I've actually had examples just in the last 12 months, even when I talked to somebody and they were convinced that this year rates were going to come down and they were waiting. And then they finally came to the realization that there really isn't going to be a huge rate decrease. They came back into the market and we had them pre-approved at a particular point. And now these homes that they were pre-approved for, they're looking in that same price range, and they're finding that those homes now are more expensive, and the homes that they are qualified to buy aren't as nice as the homes that they wanted to buy a year ago.
Yeah,
And that's the
exactly.
reality.
I always say to my clients when I talk to them, because the big question that everybody wants to know is how much am I pre-approved for? Well, I always tell them, it's not really, it's not really a matter of how much, it's a matter of what are you comfortable with? What does
Mm,
your budget comfortably allow for every month? Because at the end of the day, I still want you, or we still want families to take that weekend beach trip, to go, out to
exactly.
dinner when their kids or family member has a birthday. And we want you to comfortably financially be able to do those things. We don't ever want anybody to be house poor. So this is a part of, the education that we're giving when we're talking about the cost of waiting.
Exactly. Exactly. One of the conversations that we have with every one of our potential buyers up front is not necessarily what are you pre-approved for, but what is your ideal payment monthly? And then we back into that and I say, okay, based on your self-imposed comfortable payment, here's the price range that you're looking at. And then from there, if they want to expand that to be higher, or they realize that the homes in that price range aren't the ideal homes for them, then they can make that decision. But I don't ever want somebody to feel like I'm saying you're pre-approved for 450, go shop at 450, because
Right.
I hardly have anybody that's really pushing it that hard. Every now and then there is somebody that's like, look, the houses I want are going to be that much, and I realize that's my max, that's my high watermark, and I'm just going to go for it. But infrequently that happens. Usually I tell somebody that you're approved here, and then their price range is actually here. So when they do get into that property, that payment is very comfortable for them. And that's what I want. Just like you said, we want you to not feel like you're being suffocated by mortgage payments and all the other debts you have. Our objective for you as your financial advocates, we're not financial advisors, but I like to think that as a mortgage planner, as a mortgage advocate, that I look at all of your debt and try to help you find the perfect price range for you. We want you to have
Exactly.
disposable income. We want you to be able to save. We want you to be able to invest if that's what you choose to do. And again, I want you to find that you can put money into savings for those rainy days, for those home improvements, so you're not constantly having to borrow more money. Because even borrowing a little bit of money for a home improvement loan still adds to your monthly obligations. So isn't it so much easier if you have some of that money set aside because you were able to save, and you don't have to get another loan, and you don't have to refinance, and you don't have to get a HELOC just for that purpose? I
Right.
think everybody should have a HELOC anyway, but don't use it unless it's like one of those situations where you need to have it. A HELOC is
Well,
a great tool,
and
but it doesn't
especially,
mean that you have to use it.
yeah, and a lot of clients, especially first time home buyers, they're paying rent. So they're paying $2,000 a month for rent. Okay, well, in addition to their rent, they're paying their utilities or their car
Mhm.
payment. But what a lot of people don't realize is when we're quoting those mortgage payments, we're quoting it with your homeowner's insurance, with your property taxes. So
Yeah.
if somebody says, okay, well, I'm really comfortable paying $2,000 a month, okay, we also have to make sure that that's inclusive of the property taxes and the homeowner's insurance. So
Yeah.
it's really all about educating the clients, about what's going to be entailed or, encapsulated into that mortgage payment to, again, comfortably fit their budget.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I have said that in the past, but when you saying that again kind of hit a little bit differently. When you're looking at your rent payment, that's just the housing expense itself. But when we're quoting you a mortgage rate, or pardon, when we're quoting you a mortgage payment, that also includes the real estate taxes and the homeowner's insurance as well. So if you are comfortable making a $2,000 monthly payment for your rent, if you're getting a $2,000 mortgage, the mortgage payment, the PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance payment, it could potentially be a little bit more because you're also paying 1/12 of your insurance every month and 1/12 of your taxes every month.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's important when you're going over everything because first time homebuyers, especially, they just don't know those things. So, you want to let them know everything. It's different. We're collecting it in the mortgage payment so that come November when the property taxes are due or annually when your premiums due, you're not stroking a $2,000 check or, a $3,200 check for your property taxes. We're including that in your mortgage payment. And when the premium comes due, the mortgage company is sending the payment for that premium. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So, in closing, Melissa, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Mm, No, I don't think so. I think I'm good for today.
Okay. Well, if anybody's watching this after the fact and you weren't able to ask your question live, then please leave us a question here in the comments, and Melissa and I will be able to answer those for you on the replay. So, everybody have a great day. Melissa, thanks so much once again for joining me, and we will be back with another live Q&A in just a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Well, everybody have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks, Melissa.
Bye.